Subhodayam. Welcome to all. Yet another important session of this 7th batch of certificate course on Sanatana Dharma, organized by Veda Samskruti Samiti in association with Vishwa Yoga Vidyapit. Today we'll be touching upon Vaiseshika Darshanam by Dr. CSR Prabhu, which is very important. Of course, everything is important. And a very interesting one. I mean, instead of saying important, it's interesting one. So let us start the session with Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram. Sujalam Sufalam. Malayaj Sitalam. Sasya Syamalam Mataram. Vande Mataram. Subrajyosna Pulakitayaminim. Pullakusumita Drumadala Shobhinim. Suhasinim. Sumadhura Bhashinim. Sukhadam Varadam Mataram. Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram. Now I request Venkatnarayan garu do the pradhana, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Meditation for a minute, followed by 3 times Omkar.
Bluetooth mode.
ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्र्यवतु। ॐ श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। गुरुरेव गतिर्गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोः मतिरस्ति गुरौ मां पाहि गुरो। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। मातृदेवो भव, पितृदेवो भव, आचार्यदेवो भव, अतिथिदेवो भव। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।
ధన్యవాదాలు వెంకటనారాయణ గారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్. ఐ రిక్వెస్ట్ ప్రభు గారు టు టేక్ ఓవర్ ది క్లాస్ ప్లీజ్. నమస్కారం ప్రభు గారు.
నమస్కారం. ఓం నమో బ్రహ్మాదిభ్యో బ్రహ్మ విద్యా సంప్రదాయకర్తృభ్యో వంశ ఋషిభ్యో మహద్భ్యో నమో గురుభ్యః. సర్వోపప్లవరహిత ప్రజ్ఞానఘన ప్రత్యగర్ధో సోహమస్మి బ్రహ్మైవాహమస్మి. Friends, today we will be discussing the Vaiseshika Darshana based on my book, The Physics of Vaiseshika, which is published by SV Vedic University, Sri Venkateswara Vedic University in Tirupati. It's a very popular book. Thousands of copies have been sold, and it is also free downloadable in internet. So I proved the existence of fundamental physics and even some of the advanced features of physics, not the latest particle physics, etc., but some features of the modern physics, but mostly it is classical physics. I'll read out the introduction. Of course, the foreword is given by Subhash Kak, the Regents Professor of Computer Science at Oklahoma State University, retired. He's a very famous scholar. And the Vice Chancellor of Vedic University himself wrote the another foreword. It's a very famous book. I'm very happy in my lifetime I could achieve this. Vaiseshika of Kanada Rishi, one of the 6 schools of Indian philosophical thought, the other 5 being Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Purvamimamsa and Uttaramimamsa or Vedanta, concerns itself with the physical reality. That's the important point to be noted. Other darshanas, they concern themselves with the psychological domain, like in the Yoga Darshana, or the logical domain in Nyaya Darshana. It deals with the Vaiseshika deals with the characteristics of the physical entities, their properties, their interactions, including forces and motions of various types. Vaiseshika is called Padardha Shastra, or science of substances or material entities, dravyas. It concerns itself with the modeling of the physical world in terms of its own laws of fundamental physical entities, physical behavior, finally culminating in the atomic theory of the universe. So the Vaiseshika gave the first atomic theory, as my book has a diagram of the atom. Of course, not the structure of the atom, but the basic atomic theory. At the basic physics, Vaiseshika formed the foundation of ancient applied sciences, such as Ayurveda or medicine, and Shilpa Shastra or engineering. Modern science or Western science originating in Europe during 17th century comprises many branches. Among them, the large number of branches of sciences. We have physics is commonly identified as the most exact. Physics is the study of the physical world in all its forms and manifestations. Physics depends largely on mathematics as a tool for analysis. The quantitative aspects of physical world are expressed in mathematical form. The qualitative aspects are the principles or theory, and the quantitative aspects which are expressed in mathematical form that make physics enabled to describe the physical phenomena in the most exact manner. Thus, physics is the most exact of all the sciences. Physics deals with the fundamental entities of the physical world. Classical physics identified four fundamental substances: matter, energy, space, and time. All the sciences concern themselves with the physical world. And as you know, chemistry is a superstructure based on physics, and biology comes above that, and social sciences come above that, political science, etc., at the topmost layer, far removed from physics. But finally, everything is based on physics, whose building blocks, the physical world. All the sciences concern themselves with the physical world, not with the spiritual world. That's why they are called aparavidya or even avidya or ajnana in some cases in the ancient literature. The spiritual science or nature of the self was explained earlier to you by me. That is considered as the spiritual science or spiritual world subject, whereas these are the physical world subjects. Thus, physics is the most exact fundamental of all sciences in modern times. Physics has two parts, the classical physics and modern physics. In the present context, we are largely focusing only on the classical physics on historical grounds. Because we are talking of historical, we are going to trace the historical sequence of the development of physics. While the Vedas as a whole contain knowledge of all subjects, I mean, you should understand that the knowledge model or the education model, knowledge management model. Knowledge management is internalization of knowledge, externalization of knowledge, and socialization of knowledge. So knowledge model of the Vedas was quite different from the knowledge model we have today. In fact, what we have today is quite different from what we had yesterday. That is, say, 25 years back or 30 years back, only books-based knowledge model was there. Knowledge management model, education model, pedagogy model, all one and the same. It's book-based. But later it became internet-based. Now it is becoming AI-based. So totally different. And similarly, in the beginning of the history of development of knowledge management or education, the Vedic model existed, which is based on Shruti, only chanting and remembering. The entire knowledge was delivered in the Vedas, and it was chanted and it was rechanted and remembered. And the Vedas were being analyzed with Vedangas and Darshanas and so on, as we are discussing in this course. So the Vedas contain all knowledge of all subjects. Vaiseshika is that branch of knowledge or Veda. Veda means knowledge corresponding to the physical world in the ancient times. So in the ancient times, the physical world knowledge is called Vaiseshika. And Vaiseshika Darshana is the oldest known text of a science which deals with the physical world. In other words, physics. Physics is the science of the physical world of the modern times, and the Vaiseshika Darshana is the science of the physical world of the ancient times. Both physics and Vaiseshika Darshana have a single common interest, and that is the physical world. The constituent entities of the physical world, their qualities or properties, and their interactions, including force and motion. These are all the subjects common to physics on one hand and Vaiseshika Darshana on the other. The title of this book, The Physics of Vaiseshika, therefore, indicates that the Vaiseshika Darshana is the physics of the ancient times. The book concerns itself, therefore, with the aspects of Vaiseshika system, which are concerned with the science of physical world, that is physics. So what is the physics of Vaiseshika is being brought out in this book. And that physics of Vaiseshika was the foundation of applied sciences like medicine, that is Ayurveda, and Shilpa Shastra, that is engineering. Without Vaiseshika, there is no scope of development of Ayurveda or Shilpa Shastra or Vastu Shastra. As a first step, the development of any science is identification of fundamental categories. Like in the case of classical physics, the fundamental categories were only four: matter, energy, space, and time. Whereas in the case of Vaiseshika Darshana, there are six fundamental qualities, became seven also later. First is Dravya, or substance, or physical entity in their atomic form, in its atomic form, up to the atomic form. Dravyas, rather, many dravyas. And guna, second is guna, properties of those dravyas. And karma, motion. Karma in Vaiseshika means motion, not prarabdha karma and so on. Karma in Vaiseshika means motion, along with associated fundamental abstractions. These three things, dravya, guna, karma, are the physical aspects, and their associated properties, essential properties, are conveyed in the three fundamental abstractions. First is samanya, class, that is generalization. If you have a property common to a lot of things, then you can say it is generalization of the property. And vishesha, that is specialization. The same property which is generic becomes apparent and manifest in every single instance of that. And third is samavaya, or inherence, inherently that property being there. So later people have added abhava, nothingness, shunya. Chandramati added that. And so these 6 or 7 fundamental categories of the physical world, physical universe, have been upheld in the Vaiseshika Darshan. Now what is happening is that all the other scholars, whether in the traditional Veda Pathshalas or in the Arya Samaj Pathshalas, they teach Vaiseshika Darshana as if it is some kind of a philosophy. Whereas I am the only one person in the last 5,000 years who could bring out the physics of Vaiseshika. So unfortunately, the same Vedic scholars, both the traditional Orthodox Vedic scholars or the modern, or so to say, Arya Samajist Vedic scholars who are non-Brahmins, both of them fail to understand the science behind or the physics behind Vaiseshika, because they themselves don't have any knowledge of physics. They are just interpreting as some kind of theory of philosophy. That is why this book becomes very critically important. So the physics of Vaiseshika brings out the physics of Vaiseshika Darshana. Among 10 chapters of the Vaiseshika Darshana, only the first 5, which are dealing with the subject of interest to physics, are covered in this book. In the 5th chapter, we stop at a point where the discussions relating to the phenomena of physical world end. And remaining 5 chapters, we have added the summary points of those sutras which are relevant to physics. So in 5 chapters, the Vaiseshika's view of the physical world is brought out clearly. It comprises the fundamental entities of matter, energy, space, and time, and their interactions through various forces: gravitation, electricity, magnetism, various types of motion in various states of matter, solid, liquid, and gas. Vaiseshika models the physical world in terms of the eternal atoms as the ultimate building blocks of the universe. Atomic theory, which continued till 18th century. What is important to notice, the Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada, which go back to around 3000 BC, that means for about 5,000 years, they remained as the fundamental framework on which subjects like Ayurveda and Shilpa Shastra or Vastu have been developed and have been deployed and have been applied in practice in real life. So, at the Vaiseshika, 5,000 years back, propounded the atomic theory, which came down up to 18th century, 19th century, till John Dalton, after which Rutherford's structure of the atom was modeled, planetary model, like protons, neutrons in center, and the electrons roaming around like planets around the sun, was proposed by Rutherford in 1954, 55, 56. So till then, the indivisible atom as the ultimate unit of physical substance has continued for 5,000 years. Just imagine. And this fact is not understood either by modern science people or by the traditional knowledge of people, because they don't have knowledge of science and these people have no knowledge of Sanskrit. So coming to history, while historians of science generally unaware of the contribution of ancient India, either they are totally ignorant or unaware, or they are deliberately ignored or deliberately kept suppressed because India was a colony of the British Empire. They have acknowledged Chinese contributions to science and technology, but they have not acknowledged Indian contribution to science and technology, and let alone India's contribution to physics. So that is a grave crime committed by the historians of European origin, Western origin, who have done grave injustice to India. And nowadays they have started admitting partly here and there. Historically, another thing that has happened is the injustice done within India is Vaiseshika was merged quite unfairly with Nyaya or logic. While it is true that both go together and have a lot in common, like mathematics and physics, Vaiseshika is the science of the physical world or physics itself of the ancient world. It is called Prameya Shastra, Padartha Shastra, while Nyaya was Pramana Shastra. While Nyaya concerns itself with the epistemology of the earls of the acquisition of valid knowledge, how to acquire valid knowledge, Pramana Shastra. Nyaya doesn't concern itself with the physical world or padarthas or prameyas. It only gives the methodologies to be adopted or applied in analyzing the or understanding the true nature of the behavior of the any object, including the physical world. But those methodologies do not comprise the physical world itself. So Vaiseshika concerned itself with the ontological aspects, that is the categories in the physical world and the constituents of the universe itself. Sankhya also deals with the fundamental categories. Sankhya also deals, but only as they arise in the space of the mind, not with the external physical world. Sankhya does not recognize the external physical world. Sankhya recognizes only the Panchabhutas, which are the sensations emerging in the mind through the Pancha Indriyas, five senses. That's the end of it. So Vaiseshika is the only one darshana which accepts the existence of the physical world outside and the substances in the physical world, their constituents and their properties and their interactions and their motions. So while Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada are of very great antiquity, of a period very remote time, belong to a period post-Vedic but pre-Puranic, what is usually known as the Sutra period. Its extant commentaries belong to a period of recent origin. The commentaries on Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada are of recent origin, relatively. The extant commentaries, that means there were other commentaries which were lost. I'll now give some information about it. Even though the time period of Kannada's Vaiseshika Sutras is not known with certainty, a Chinese tradition describes Kannada being of great antiquity, of at least about a millennium before Buddha. The old date of Buddha was 500 BC, but now the new date is 1900 BC. So you put 1,000 years or more before Buddha. That will take us to around 3000 BC. Unfortunately, the series of successive commentaries of the earlier periods are not available to us anymore. There was a large time interval between the original Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada and the commentaries, starting with Prashastapada. That itself was around 2500 years gap. Prashastapada estimated the 5th century AD, who also had the names as Prashastamati, Prashastadeva, Prashastakaradeva. While we lost most of the early commentaries, which might have existed before Prashastapada, we lost. But such commentaries have been named or referred, like one Katandi, one Vritti by Bharadwaja, and one commentary by Ravana. The earliest text, Ravana means which Ravana, we don't know. The earliest text we have with us is Prashastapada's own text, known as Padartha Dharma Sangraha. So this text is not exactly a commentary to Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada, but it has its own independent status as a respectable text in Vaiseshika with a significant amount of Puranic orientation and related content. In our tradition, we have the Vedic orientation and the Puranic orientation distinctly different. Most of Hinduism we have today is the Puranic Hinduism. Prashastapada also wrote a different text, which was the original commentary actually to the Vaiseshika Sutras, and that was known as Bhashya, Vakya, or Tika, which is not available today. Therefore, we were forced to depend upon the existing text Padartha Dharma Sangraha. So I have studied Padartha Dharma Sangraha in depth for many years, and I took about 20 years to write this book, and the university took 5 years to publish it. So after Prashastapada, the commentaries on Vaiseshika are found from more recent periods of time, within 1000 years. Kiranavali of Udayana, King Udayana is very famous, of 11th century AD. And he wrote this book called Kiranavali as a commentary to Prashastapada's work, Padartha Dharma Sangraha. And there the physics is brought out. Upaskara of Shankara Mishra of early 15th century is a commentary on Vaiseshika Sutras with a heavy dependence on Prashastapada. So all these are in synchronization with Prashastapada, on whom I have also depended upon. But again, it is a old book and it is not a scientific book in the modern sense. Atreya wrote a bhashya to Vaiseshika Sutras, where the critique was given by Vadiraja. Vadiraja is one of the gurus in the parampara of Raghavendra Swami, Madhva Sampradaya. Most, if not all, the works and even references to Vaiseshika are traceable to scholars of Nyaya. It has been merged with Nyaya, as I told you. Prominent of them being Prabhakara, Bhatta, Jayadatta, Annam Bhatta. You know, Tarka Sangraha is written by Annam Bhatta. Mallavadi, Murari Mishra, Chakradhara, Simhasuri, Sri Vallabha, Raghunatha, Raghurama, Jayarama, Venidatta, and Udyotakara. So some of them had access to some of the lost ancient commentaries, such as Katandi and Vakya. For example, Udayana himself, King Udayana, refers to this in the Karnavali to a Vaiseshika Bhashya as being very extensive. And the same is ascribed to Ravana by Padmanabha Mishra in 16th century in his Karnavali Bhashya. Padmanabha Mishra wrote a Bhashya to Karnavali, and there he says that so-called Katandi and Vakya refers to as the being authored by Ravana. We don't know whether the old Ravana's book is continuing or a new Ravana has written it. Like Patanjali also, we have two Patanjalis. One Patanjali who wrote the Yoga Sutra, other Patanjali who wrote the Mahabhashya to Panini's Vyakarana. None of the commentaries post Prashastapada attempted a physics-based interpretation of the Vaiseshika Sutras, as they were too clouded and dominated by Nyaya logic. So Prashastapada, who was the oldest of the commentators available today, is held with high regard and respect as the first known commentator next to Bharadwaja and Ravana, whose work Padartha Dharma Sangraha is available and is considered as a standard reference text on Vaiseshika. And Dashapadartha Shastra of Chandramati as an ancient text of Vaiseshika and is also translated to Chinese by Huan Sang during 648 AD. If you go to Nalanda, you can see Huan Sang Museum. He was there for a long period. As a student, he became a teacher or professor, and then he carried 10,000 manuscripts to China. Thus, the origins of physics can be traced back to the Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada, of very great antiquity, of several millennia before the Common Era, and also later to Padartha Dharma Sangraha of Prashastapada in 5th century AD. All the other available commentaries are of more recent origin, a few centuries only. Upaskara of Shankara Mishra had its origin in second quarter of 15th century, and Setu of Padmanabha Mishra originated, which is a commentary to Kiranavali of Udayana in 16th century. All these texts have been studied all through the history. Please note, this is an important point. All these texts have been studied all through the history in the traditional academic curricula, that is Veda Pathshalas and Gurukulas, along with the Nyaya logic, Nyaya Shastra. They consider it as part of Nyaya, though it is different. Nyaya Vaiseshika are coupled together very strongly. However, all of them belong to a time period, several centuries. This is an important point to note. All of them belong to a time period of several centuries before modern ideas and the advent of Western science in the first formal discussions of classical physics in the West, which is the 18th century. So the main point I'm trying to make is the origin of physics is in India and not in the West. So this is the Vaiseshika history. But now I'm forced to refer to the Advaita unitary view also, which is coming out in the modern physics as against the classical physics in the Vaiseshika. Advaita based on the Upanishads, the Indian philosophical models of physical reality went beyond this perspective of classical physics. The Vaiseshika refers to classical physics largely, though not fully. And the modern physics is not there in terms of quantum mechanics or other things in quantum theory, quantum physics, which are present in the other texts of Advaita, including the Vedas and the Upanishads. Advaita Vedanta, based on the Upanishads, presents a unitary view of the physical reality. According to Advaita, Advaita itself means unity, oneness. Brahman, or the unknowable absolute reality, is the essence of existence, whose apparent manifestation is the multifarious universe. Due to Maya, in quantum mechanics, the nature of physical world is expressed in Schrodinger's wave equation and is described to be expression of Maya by Schrodinger himself. The relativity of space and time, as expressed in Indian philosophical system. The Indian philosophical system makes very clearly that space and time are relative. And that same thing has been told in its own way in the relativity theory of Einstein. The classical physical model of four fundamental entities, matter, energy, space, and time, gets fundamentally transformed in the modern physics. In the context of relativity theory, space and time do not have absolute existence. They are relative to the observer. When the observer travels at velocity of light, then both space and time become zero by factor root of 1 minus v square by c square. Thus, they do not have absolute existence. Thus, we have to reduce the four fundamental entities only to two, that is matter and energy. And matter and energy were considered independent in classical physics, but became interconvertible and philosophically single in modern physics in relativity theory. With the famous equation of Einstein, E is equal to mc square. This equation demonstrates the unitary and interconvertible nature of matter and energy. Thus, when we ask the question, what is the final one single fundamental absolute reality? Please mute your mics. The answer could be, mute your mics. If you ask a question, what is the fundamental one single entity of absolute reality? The answer could be the one which becomes many, and with many all forms of matter, all forms of energy. There is only one which becomes many in terms of many forms of matter or many forms of energy. This one was explained as Brahman or Om in Advaita Vedanta Upanishads. The parallelism between one Brahman of Upanishads, which manifests as universe, and one absolute reality, which manifests as all forms of matter and all forms of energy in universe, cannot be missed. I wrote an article way back in 75 that how the modern physics can be explained in terms of Advaita Vedanta, or how Advaita Vedanta can be explained in terms of modern physics. In Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada, this unity comes out as Sat, equivalent to Brahman of Vedanta, which is the essence of all existence. Sat Akaranavat Nityam, there is a sutra to that effect. And that Sat results in liberation. Knowing of Sat, understanding or thoroughly enlightening oneself about Sat, leads to moksha or nishreyasa. The observer of modern physics was identified as Atman, or the self, in Vaiseshika. So that is important contribution of Vaiseshika The observer, which is accepted by the modern physics much later, was accepted in Vaiseshika way before, along with the classical model of the physics. In this book, an attempt has been made to unearth and demonstrate the evidence of awareness and knowledge of the basic principles of physics, including atomic theory, in the Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada, whose antiquity is unassailable and is well known to have large precedence over the Western sources of physics, including the recent sources of 18th century and also the ancient Greek sources of 4th century BCE. Demetrius was credited with atomic theory, but the Vaiseshika Sutras are way before Demetrius. We are talking of 3000 BCE for the Kannada period, and we're talking of 4th century BCE for Demetrius. The Greeks had close interactions with Indians. They came here many times and learned a lot. It is hoped that this endeavor will enable a better assessment and appreciation of the hallowed tradition of ancient Indian science. This is my introduction, which I wrote. And now I'll go into the text itself. Adhato dharma vyakhyasya. Now we are going to describe dharma. And what is dharma? Dharma can be multifariously defined and described as from the root dhru, to means to hold, stands for, therefore dharma, the word dharma stands for, it's also called ritam in Vedas, stands for universal law, universal virtue, or the principles of sustainability of universe, which are nothing but principles of science, physics, which holds up this universe. The universe is held up, otherwise it would collapse due to the laws of universe, that is gravitation and so on. The laws of nature, including the laws of physics, which in the present subject of Vaiseshika Sutra, in the present Vaiseshika Darshana, these topics are being covered. So the laws of physics are being described as dharma in the Vaiseshika Sutras of Kannada. So in the context of physics, dharma can be interpreted as a body of rules and laws which determines the behavior of the physical world with all its constituents of all forms of matter, energy, space, and time, and forces such as gravitation, electrostatic forces, electromagnetic forces, and so on, and also the weak interactions within the atom that came later. Yato abhyudaya nishrayasa siddhi sadharma. What is dharma? Dharma is that which will result in abhyudaya and nishrayasa both. Yato abhyudaya nishrayasa siddhi sadharma. Dharma is that from which progress and liberation, that is highest good. Nishrayasa means highest good or liberation. Both can be achieved. As you know, in today, the only abhyudaya is talked about. In the context of Vaiseshika, the physical perspective also may be considered. The laws on which the physical world or physical reality operates can be termed as dharma of the physical world. In other words, the science of physics can be considered as dharma of the physical world. Evidently, the knowledge of laws of physical world, that is, this can lead to material progress by applying in engineering and technology, and through material progress, the economic development has been achieved. But it should also lead to nishrayasa, that is the highest good. In the world, the countries which have developed very advancedly in science and technology and economic development, like America, Russia, China, they lack the spiritual dimension or the nishrayasa part. That is why they indulge in adharmic actions, wars, and so on. Thus, the material progress, when combined with the social, moral, and ethical progress, can lead to highest good, which shall lead to moksha or liberation, which is the total freedom and the independence of the individual and society, without which there is dependence and suffering. And only such dharma, dharma-based economic development, dharma dardhasya kamascha, can lead to moksha or freedom. So freedom comes from spiritual enlightenment. So both material achievement and the spiritual enlightenment, both are required. This is what the sutra means. Yataha abhyudaya nishrayasa siddhi sadharmaha. Tadvachana amnayasya pramanyam. So being the vachana of dharma, amnaya means Veda, acquires pramanya. That means it is a valid reference. That means you have the valid knowledge either through prachaksha or anumana or shabda. So shabda means Veda. That means referential validity comes to Veda because it is proclaiming or declaring or stating dharma only. So that way, though Kannada has not given the explicit reference to God or Ishvara, he is admitting his affiliation or allegiance to Vedas, which are definitely they have affiliation, the existence of God. Ishvara is admitted. They are theistic. Therefore, Vaiseshika is considered as theistic, though there is no explicit reference to Ishvara in the Vaiseshika Sutras. So even in Sankhya Sutra, there is no explicit reference to Ishvara, but Purusha is there, who later evolved into Ishvara in the Yoga Darshana. So now, Dharma Vishesha Prasuta, Dravya Guna Karma Samanya Vishesha Samayanam Padarthanam Sadhanam Vedharmyabhyam Tattvajnana Nishreyasa. So how is the Nishreyasa achieved? By the Tattvajnana of Dravya Guna Karma Samanya Vishesha Samavaya, the Shat Padarthas. Of course, the Abhava was added later, which are all born out of Dharma Vishesha Prasuta, born out of special qualities of Dharma. By understanding this, you will achieve moksha. So you have to buy this book from the Saint Venkateswara Vedic University. There is no soft copy available officially. Unofficially, it may be there in the internet. So you have to write to Vedic University Tirupati and they will send it to you by post. They are little old timers. So Kannada gave the statement that by the exhaustive philosophical knowledge and understanding of the physical world, in terms of its constituents of padarthas made up of substances of their qualities or properties and their motions of various types, similar and dissimilar, generalized and specialized, all of this knowledge will lead to the highest good, all born out of the physical qualities of dharma. So in other words, Kannada is describing details of physics. So I'll now go very fast. How much time we have? Prithivyapastejo Vayurakacha.
A lot of time is there. It is
Okay.
only 7:12.
Okay. Prithivyapastejo Vayurakasha Dikkala Manatma iti Dravyani. So what are the substances in the universe? Prithivi, Apa, Teja, Vayu, Akasha, Dik, Kala, Mana and Atma. So in addition to the well-known substances of matter and energy, Prithvi, Apa and Vayu are matter and Agni is Akasha, Teja or Agni is the energy and Akasha is space or ether and Dik, directional space, Cartesian space is separately mentioned as distinct from ether. Akasha is ether and the directional space is Cartesian space which is XYZ coordinates, which is Dik, and Kala, time. So matter, energy, space, and time are described here. In addition to Akasha, which is ether, in the olden days, they had the ether. Relativity theory was dismissing ether, but laws of Maxwell, of electromagnetic radiation, all belong to the fluid dynamics of ether only, which has zero density. So the ether is admitted in Vaiseshika, as was so till the relativity theory was there. The superfluid or zero density superfluid are kind of hypothetical akasha, which has zero density. In addition, Dik is separately identified as directional space, which is in terms of the referential Cartesian space for the inertial referential framework. And the time is admitted. In addition, observer is also admitted. That's where the important contribution of Kannada lies. Observer was admitted only in quantum physics, centuries later to classical physics. And whereas Kannada admitted observer right from the beginning. And observer has two components, the self and the mind. Mana and Atma, both are admitted and proven to exist. In each and every statement in the sutras is proven with evidences immediately, and even objections are addressed and objections are overruled by due evidence. So then we have the gunas, rupa, rasa, gandha. There are 5 gunas. All the 5 exist for Prithvi. Rupa, rasa, gandha, sparshaha. And for remaining dravyas, they go on reducing. In Akasha, none of them exist. Rupa, rasa, gandha, sparsha. Name and form, taste, smell, touch. And then other gunas are sankhya, counting, parimana, quantity, pruthaktvam, that means differentiation. Previous, samyoga vibhage, paraparatve, that is previous and later. Buddhi, sukha dukha, ichha dvesha, prayatnascha gunaha. These are all classified as gunas. The ontology of Vaiseshika Darshana classifies all these properties as gunas. Dravatva, gurutva. So Prashisthapada elaborated the additional qualities which have been referred and discussed by Kanada in later chapters. Prashisthapada identified them and put in his commentary. These are the gurutva, that is gravitation, having weight, dravatva, or having liquidity or viscosity, and sneha, that is softness or stickiness or viscidity, and samskara or trait or habit or continuation of a function, and dharma and adharma, opposite of dharma is adharma, and shabda or signal. These additional qualities, 7 in addition to the 17, were well known in the ancient scientific literature, including the vast literature of Ayurveda, which used all of them in describing the dravya guna properties of substances, like either natural substances or drugs. The word cha indicates that there are more qualities, and that is what Prashisthapada has elaborated. So the packaging of specific qualities into one compound word indicates their closeness and membership of a specific class of qualities. Form, smell, touch. Usage of plural for numbers and counting also. Measures per indicates several types of them. Multiple numbers or numbering systems of different bases and multiple measures of multiple items. Length, area, volume, weight, etc. Given the fact that several applied sciences such as medicine, Ayurveda and engineering use these measures and numbers with various units for various requirements, the statement in plural can be well understood. So the entire superstructure of Ayurveda and Shilpa Shastra with their units, with their measurements, which exist for thousands of years before the birth of modern units and measurements, British system or metric system. If you go to Lothal, there's a museum where it shows the weights and measures, which are the predecessors of the British system of measurements and the metric system also. You can see the actual weights and measures. Utkshepanam, Akshepanam, Akunjanam, Prasaranam, Gamanam. Now the motion, karma is being described. Utkshepanam, Avakshepanam, Akunjanam, Prasaranam, Gamanam. Upward ballistic motion, downward fall, and then contraction, expansion, transmission, broadcasting, and finally Gamanam in general. So Prashasthapada explained Gamana Grahanat, Brahmana, Rechana, Spandana, Urdhajvarana, Tiryaga Patana, Unmana, Namana, Unmanadayaha, Gamana Visesha. Multiple various types of motion. Gamana Grahanat, Brahmana, revolution, Rechana, expulsion, Spotana, explosion, Syandana, viscous flow, Urdhajvarana, Tiryag Patana, falling down, Namana, bending forward, Unmana, bending upwards, Unnamana, Adaya, Gam Adaya, etc., etc., etc. All types of motion have to be taken as Gamana Visesha. So these words are self-explanation. I have already explained. I am going a little fast because otherwise the whole book cannot be covered in one lecture. Now he says sad anityam dravyatva karyam karanam samanya visheshavadati dravya guna karma nam aviseshaha. Having existence, being impermanent, being the result of effect of something which is a cause, being the cause, and being generalized and being specialized, all these are the properties in general of material entities or substances, dravyas, gunas or qualities, and karma or motion. So these are the generic property description of dravya guna karma. Prashastabhada adds two more: abhidhayata, jnayatva, knowability and nameability. You can see how deep they are going on what is dravya, what is guna. So dravya gunayoh sajatiya arambhakatvam sadharmyam of the dravya and gunas, the ability to initiate or create entities and quantities in their own class is common property. That means the entities create other entities, gunas create other gunas. Dravyani dravyantaram arabhante, gunasya gunantaram. So substances create other or initiate other substances, and properties initiate or create other properties. Karma karma sadhyam na vidyate. Whereas motion does not exist which can be caused by another motion. Motion is on its own. Now law of conservation of matter is being given here, which is the fundamental law of physics. Na dravyam karyam karanancha vadhati. No substance destroys or kills its own effect and cause. Na dravyam karyam karanancha vadhati. This is law of conservation of matter. And first law of Newton, that is inertia, no object shall continue to move or remain at rest without the application of force. This is given here, impossibility of perpetual motion. Karya virodhi karma. Motion is the enemy of motion. Properties of substance, kriya gunavat samavayi karanamiti dravya lakshanam. See, in modern science, we never bother what is the property of a substance. Here is even going to such an extent. A substance is that which has certain properties and certain motions. Kriya gunavat and samavayi karanam, that is inherently being the cause of inherence. So it has some inherent properties also. This is the definition of a substance. And what is a guna property? Dravyasraya gunavan samyoga vibhageshu akaranam anapeksha iti guna lakshanam. The characteristics of a guna or quality is being dependent on the substance. Of course, unless substance is there cannot be any property. And being not a cause of conjunction and disjunction. A property in a substance will not cause any conjunction, that means joining or disjunction, that is decomposition. Now, properties of motion. Ekadravyam, agunam, samyoga vibhageshu, anapeksha karanam, iti karma lakshanam. The characteristics of motion are belonging to only one material entity, having no quality, being unaffected cause, both in conjunction or synthesis or disjunction, which is decomposition. So how fundamental thinking is there, you can understand. Dravya guna karmanam, dravyam karanam samanyam. In a material entity or substance, the cause of all the three, that is substance and its property and motion, is the substance itself. If the substance is not there as a cause, there cannot be any properties of that substance or any motions of that substance. So it goes on like this, and I have identified, like for example, Sankhya, Dvitva Prabhutaya Sankhya, Prathakta Samyoga Vibhagascha, from 2 onwards, Sankhya start. 1 itself is not exactly Sankhya, counting. From 2 onwards up to infinity. Now inertia, first law of motion. Asamavayat samanya karyam karma na vidyate. Asamavayat samanya karyam karma na vidyate. Due to not being inherent, motion does not exist as a generalized effect always. So unless there is a cause like force, there will be no motion because it is not inherent in the substance. It is not samavaya. Samyoganam dravyam, and substance is joint effect of conjunction. Rupanam rupam, upward motion. Gurutva prayatna samyogad ukshepanam. Upward motion will come with the conjunction. Two forces acting together. One is gurutva, that is gravitation, and other is prayatna, effort to throw it up. Samyoga vibhagascha karmanam karana samanye dravya karmanam karma karana. You have to read the book in great depth. Though it's a small book, it's a very deep book, and it takes a lot of effort to understand it. Now, the bedrock of all science. What is the bedrock of all science ever, whether ancient or modern? That is the causality principle. Karana bhavat karya bhavaha. There is no effect without a cause. Natu karya bhavat karana bhava. That even though the effect can exist without a cause, the cause can exist without a cause. No effect can exist without a cause. And generalization, specialization, which are very common abstractions in object-oriented systems, also in systems theory. Samanyam nisesham iti buddhyapeksham. The buddhi, that is intellect, will be able to distinguish what is common and what is special. Bhavo anurtereva hetutva samanyameva. Existence as such is generalization. Dravyatvam, gunatvam, karvatvam cha samanyani visheshascha. Whereas the substanceness, qualityness or motion can be generalized or specialized. Now we are going to explain the tree hierarchy, class hierarchy. Anyatrankebhyo visheshebhyah, accepting the specialization instances at the end of the class hierarchy, all others are part of the generalization specialization. We have a tree, like you have a person. If you classify a person into adults and children, and then adults into male and female, and then male into persons into students and employees and so on, you can have a big tree. Finally, at the end of the tree, your own existence will be there. This is common thing in class hierarchy, type hierarchy, in object-oriented programming and system physics and systems theory. So that is what is explained here. Antyebhyo visheshebhyah, accepting the specialization instances at the end of the class hierarchy, all others are part of the generalization and specialization hierarchy, class hierarchy. I wrote a book on the object-oriented databases where I showed generalization and specialization, which is very common, well-known class hierarchy. Now, existence is defined. Sat iti yataha dravya guna karmasu sa satta. It is existence from which the notion or perception that this is existence is generated among the substances, qualities, and motions. And what is existence? Dravya guna karma bhyo ardhantaram satta. The notion of existence exists independently or separately from all the three dravya gunas. In your own mind, the word existence can occur, independent of all the three also. So I'll skip many sutras and go to one existence. Ultimate truth, the Advaita concept of one existence is also declared here in a different way. Saditi linga visheshat, vishesha linga bhavat, cha eko bhavaha. The notion or perception of existence exists also as one existence due to itself being a special indicator due to the absence of any special indicator. Linga means special indicator. Now, of course, the gunas of Prithvi, as I told you, Prithvi has all the gunas. Ruparasa gandha sparshavati Prithvi. Then we have the Ruparasa sparsha to apo drava snigdhaha. Apa has one minus. Ruparasa sparsha vat. Apo drava snigdhaha. Tejo rupa sparshavan. Teja has only rupa and sparsha. Sparshavan vayuhu. Te akashena vidyate. Sarpi, now is it the change of state. Sarpi jatu madhuchishtanam agni samyogat dravatvam adbhi samanyam. A generalized property of substances like ghee, solidified ghee, and lac, chatu is lac, and beeswax or honeycomb, Agni Samyogat, by conjunction with Agni or heat or any energy, heat energy. Dravatvam, they acquire liquidity. Adbhi Samanya, which is common to all of them. Liquidity. So the change of state was mentioned in different ways. Trapu, Sisa, Loha, Raju, Trapu, Sisa, Loha, Rajata, Suvarnanam, Agni Samyoga, Dravatvam, Adbhik Samanyam. Just like other liquids, even metals like gold, silver, tin, and lead, they will all become liquid when Agni Samyoga is given. So it goes on like this. We don't have time to cover each and every sutra, but some highlights only I am going to cover. You can read in detail. It's a research area as well, apart from deep study, even at the postgraduate level. Now time is being defined. Aparasmin, aparam, the previous and next. Yogapat, simultaneity. Chiram, permanent. Kshipram, fast. These are all the symptoms or the indications of linga, of kala lingani. When somebody dies, their relatives go and tell others, he made time. If there's no death, then there's no time. Dravyatva nityatve vayuna vyakhya, space. Ita idamiti yatas taddishyam lingam. This, when you say this or that, then that is we are talking of space. From here or from there until there. So he will describe all the directional space. What is starting with the east, because it is based on the evidence of rise of sun. Then I will go to more highlighted points in the chapter 3. I'll go to chapter Atmendriya. Now, the proof of mind existing. Atmendriyartha sannikarshe jnanasya bhavo abhavasya manaso lingam. The indicative characteristic or proof of existence of mind is the knowledge of existence and non-existence. That means you are able to say that something exists or something does not exist because your mind exists. If your mind does not exist, you cannot say that also. That is because of the conjunction of the self with the senses. If the self is in conjunction, in joining with eyes, then I can see something is there through the mind. When the contact or conjunction of senses with the self happens, the knowledge arises. This is the indicative proof of the existence of mind. The existence of knowledge is the proof of existence of mind. And mind is only one in each organism. Prayatnayo yogapatyad jnana yogapatyad chai ekam. Mind is only one in one individual. Due to non-simultaneity of volition or knowledge acquisition, and also due to non-simultaneity of cognition. You cannot have cognition of two different cognitions at the same time. You can have cognition of one reality. Therefore, mind is only one in an individual. Now coming to the proof of existence of the self. Pranapana nimesha jivana manogati indriyantara vikaraha sukha dukha ichha dvesha prayatnascha atmanolingam. Indicative characteristics of the self are inhalation and exhalation, closing and opening of the eyelids, existence of life, movement of mind, changes or modifications of various senses, feelings of pleasure, pain, and desire and hatred. Also effort, prayatna, that is a proposal to perform some action. These are the proofs of the existence of the individual self. By virtue of all the above indicated proofs, we have to accept the existence of self, even though the classical physics has not addressed the existence of self. Whereas in the quantum physics, the role of observer was accepted as an essential requirement. Tasya dravyatva nityatve vayuna vyakhed. Now, one more, various objections are being raised, saying that self does not exist and so on. Like some of the schools of philosophy say that. He has raised each objection and demolished that objection here. Each of about half a dozen different objections have been raised. And the assertion of the existence of self is ahamiti pratyagatmani, continuously being experienced self, I, ahamiti pratyagatmani, bhavat. The proof is that you continuously feel I exist, I exist, I exist. Ahamiti pratyagatmani bhavat, paratra abhavat, and you, what you feel, I will not feel, and what I feel, you will not feel. So different selves in different individuals. Ardhantara pratyakshaha, due to the existence of the self, the feeling as I in the self, which is being directly perceived by everyone, due to the absence of the feeling as I elsewhere, anywhere else, and a meaning other than body. You say my body, you don't say, if you are the body, then you say I am the body. You are not saying, you are saying my body. You directly perceived or is observable. So, Devadatto gacchati upachara abhimana kshirat pratyaksho ahankaraha. So, there will be objections raising, it's only body, there is no self like that. He has negated and demolished all the objections. And finally, he is also referring to the self being described in the Vedas. Ahamiti mukhya yogyabhyam shabdavat vyatirekavyabhicharat vishesha siddhed agamikaha na agamikaha. The knowledge of I am, along with the attributes, is not necessarily revealed only through the Vedas. Because Vedas talk of the Atma, that doesn't mean you have no other indication of the self. You can feel the self yourself. The existence of self is not proved only by the revelation in the Vedas, since the self is provided in particular the innate as well as sensible cognition in the form of I, accompanied with the invariable divergence of such cognition from all other things in the world. That cognition of I or I-ness is distinctly unique and different from all other objects in the world. So now there is an objection saying Sukha Dukkha Jnana Nishpatti Vaiseshat Aikatmyam. How can there be one single self when there are multiple experiences of the individual selves? Therefore, he says finally, Vyavasthato Nana, in Vyavastha, in reality, in practical reality, there are multiple selves. Though in the 7th chapter later, he refers to the Vedic or Vedantic statement that ultimately it's only oneself as a tattva. It is possible to establish that there exist multiple selves on the grounds of the efficacy of standard body of knowledge or Shastra, in addition to the ground reality of well-known knowledge of the existence of multiple selves. The standard knowledge source such as Shastras also indicate the existence of multiple selves. That is how the Jivatma concept came. Now we go to chapter 4, part 1, atomic theory. Sat akaranavat nityam. Sat or existence is eternal, permanence, no birth, no death, and causeless. The atomic state of existence. Tasya karyam lingam. Karanabhavat karya bhavaha. Anitya iti. Okay, tasya karanam avidya. How we are not able to see the atoms? It is due to ignorance. So he goes on explaining the evidences of the atomic existence of the ultimate reality. So the universe is comprised of the atoms of various dravyas. Of course, in Vaiseshika, each dravya has different types of atoms. Anusamyogaha to aprasiddha. The conjunction of atoms cannot be ruled out. Of course, the atoms do have conjunctions. Now I go to chapter 5, motion. Atma samyoga prayatnabhyam haste karma. Now I have a hand. I want to move the hand. So I need to have prayatna in myself. I should put effort. That means there is a joining or conjunction of the self with effort. Unless I want to move and I put an effort to move, it will not move. So now my hand is moving. Then what will happen? Tadha hasta samyogacha musale karma. So there is a musala, there is a stone here, and my hand is going and hitting that stone. So when I hit the stone moves forward. That means hasta samyogat musale karma. The stone is going to move. And immediately he says, abhighatat musala samyogat haste karma. Even though the stone has moved forward, because of the abhighata, there is a motion in the hand also. That is the third law of Newton, reaction. Abhighatat musala samyogat haste karma. First he says, hasta samyogat musale karma, abhighataje musalado karmani vitiregat akaranam hasta samyogaha, tada atma samyogo hasta karmani, abhighatat musala samyogat haste karma. So third law of Newton is also identified here. And then samyoga bhave gurutvat patanam. If there is no samyoga, so I am holding the stone in my hand. If there is no samyoga of my hand with stone, gurutvat, it will fall down, the free fall. So gurutvat patanam, the word gravity in English is a distortion of the word gurutva in Sanskrit, for your information. Now, nodana vishesha bhavat nodbhanatir yaggamanam. If there is no force, there will be no downward motion or upward motion. So downward motion is happening when I remove the samyoga due to gurutva. That means there is a force. Now that means that gurutva is a kind of a force. That's what it implies. Now acceleration. Prayatna visheshat nodana visheshaha. Nodana means force. If I put more prayatna, more energy, more effort, then I get more force. And prayatna visheshat nodana visheshaha. More force due to more effort, and nodana visheshat udamana visheshaha, more what? Force means more speed. Udamana visheshaha. What is udamana visheshaha? Acceleration. So more force means more speed or acceleration. That means force is proportional to acceleration. That is F is equal to ma. So I have given elaborate explanations of each one of them and varieties of motion. Tadha dagdhasya vispotane. In the explosion, there will be explosive motion. And then we have the vibratory motion of the grass blade. Trune karma vayu samyogat. The truna will go on vibrating. Then crystal motion, manigamana. And then magnetic needle motion. Suchi abhisarpanam. Iti adrishta karanam. Unseen force makes the crystal, that is, quartz crystal vibrations, which are used in all the clocks. And the magnetic needle movements, this is called as adrishta, unseen force. Ishavayugapat samyoga vishesha karmanyatve hetuhu. Now the ballistic motion, there is a bow and arrow. The arrow is being released from the bow. Ishavayugapat karmanyatve samyoga vishesha karmanyatve hetuhu lodanadhyabhik karma tat karmakarita cha samskarad uttaram tadhottaram cha. So initial force result in the motion of the arrow coming out of the bow, and it will go on moving. Tat karmakarita cha, having performed that motion, it acquires a samskara, which we call kinetic energy in English. And because of that samskara, it will move further. Samskara, uttaram karma, tadhottaram cha. Finally, what happens? When the samskara is no more, samskara abhave gurutvat patanam. The ballistic motion we have studied in 8th class is explained here. Samskara abhave gurutvat patanam. Nodanadhyam ishayo karma tat karma karita cha samskarat uttaram karma tadhottaram cha samskara bhave gurutvat patanam. So we have seen ballistic motion, now motion in solids. Nodana abhighatat samyukta samyogacha prithivyam karma. In solids, motion will come either by application of force, nodana abhighatat, or samyukta samyogat. That means like a gunpowder explosion, prithivyam karma. Then he also says, apam samyoga bhave gurutvat patanam, liquid motion, liquid state. If there is no samyoga or conjunction with any object, it will fall down. Free fall, gurutva. Dravatvat syandanam. Due to liquidity, there will be viscous flow. Nadyo vayu samyogat arohanam. So, due to vayu samyoga or to do exposure to sunlight, there will be evaporation in liquid state. Arohanam. Nodana apedana samyukta samyogacha. That evaporation will take place also by removing the pressure. Apedanat. And also by chemical combinations. Samyukta samyogacha. Vriksha abhisarpanam ityadrishtakaaritam, osmotic movement in the tree. Abhisarpanam, osmotic motion in the tree. Vriksha abhisarpanam ityadrishtakaaritam, due to an unseen force, osmotic force. And condensation or decomposition. Apam sanghato virenancha tejas samyogat. There is apa, liquid. It will be either conjunctured or it is synthesized or decomposed, disjunction, due to energy application. If you pass current into water, it will decompose into hydrogen and oxygen. And refers to water formation in the clouds. Tatra vispho jatur lingam. The proof of that is vispho. Vispho means the lightning, electricity. And it also says Vaidikancha. It is also mentioned in the Veda. Where is it mentioned in the Veda? I have gathered it. Apa garbhosya oshadhinam, garbho vanaspatinam, bhutasya vishwasya agne garbho apamasi. O Agni, you are in the womb of water. Garbho apamasi. So if you go and discuss the same thing with a scholar, he will not be able to understand creation of water or decomposition of water by electricity, or he will not be able to understand evaporation, osmotic pressure, because he doesn't have the physical understanding today. Earlier they had, but today they simply chant and they will explain it as some kind of a vague philosophy. I met all the scholars concerned. Apam samyogat vibhagacha stanait now, and is referring to the formation of water in the clouds due to thunder. Prithivya karmani teja karma vayu karma cha vayakhyatam, and so on. This is chapter 5. You see, normally Benjamin Franklin is credited with discovery of electricity. But here electricity and formation of water in the clouds is being described very clearly by Kanada around 5,000 years before Benjamin Franklin. So to be very frank, the whole history of science as we study is a hoax. And this is the proof available in my book. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu Garu, for the very, very crisp information about your book and the great information it contains. Now, we can take one or two questions before we start Pradhana. So, anyone who wants to ask question, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand and then ask your question. Seshgiri Garu, yes.
Namaste, Guruji. You very often refer to observer in this entire history. Who is the observer, sir, in this?
Self.
Oh, that's right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? I think they are still trying to observe, assimilate, digest what is being taught. Yeah, Dr. Sujit. Yeah, please ask your question.
Morning, sir. In the sixth Dravya Guna Karma Samanya Vishesha, which was the sixth one? I couldn't catch it.
Samavaya, inherence.
Samavaya.
Inherence.
And
Abstraction.
the And the seventh one added
Seventh is
Bhava.
not there in the Kanada's Vaiseshika Sutras, but later on
Abhava.
added as Abhava, nothingness.
Abhava. ధన్యవాదాలు.
Okay, Sharma garu, MBB Sharma, Rama Sharma. You can ask your question now. Unmute and ask.
Pranam sir, today lecture is very, very great, and maybe I have one this thing. This from the name Kannada, maybe Kanamu, what we presently call that, maybe that might have come. It could be.
No, the word Kanada literally means a person who eats kanas. So he is Adbhakshane. So he is probably, that is a nickname given to him because he talks of atoms and all that. Like the word Panini refers to Saraswati.
Correct, correct.
It may not be his original name, or it may be an original name given by parents like that. But here also it may be that possibility is there.
Because we have read from 5th, 6th standard, the Kanamulu means maybe.
Yeah. He is supposed to be eating kanas, that is atomic scale of microparticles. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And you can give, Chittibabu, you can give the address of procuring this book later in the group. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, Radha Kumari garu, you can ask a question.
Good morning, sir.
Mhm.
Sir, as you told in your lecture that there are two Patanjalis. One is author of Yoga Sutras and the other one is author of Mahabhashya of Patanjali, of Panini's Sutras. So how do we get to know that these two were two different people?
Because of time factor. Because you see, Panini is a much later personality. And that is around 7th century BC. He was a professor of Takshashila University. And Patanjali Mahabhashya is a commentary on Panini's Sutras, nothing but. So it has to be a later one. Whereas Patanjali of the Yoga Sutras is after Kapila Muni and before Gautama and Kanada. That's what the sequence of darshanas is also there. Because there is a Vyasa Bhashya to Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Vyasa is later to Patanjali, that is well known. And Panini is definitely later to Vyasa. And the second Patanjali is later to Panini. That is how we conclude this.
Thank you.
Okay, now we go for, yeah, any other question? Radha Kumari garu, you wanted to ask something?
Ji, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
for a person like me who does not have basic knowledge of physics, how do we understand these esoteric?
No, if you don't know physics, that's all right. You can know Vaiseshika itself. You can read that book and you can learn physics through Vaiseshika itself.
And sir, in your book, are the Sanskrit?
Yes, everything is given. Yes, word by word.
Okay, and then translation is there.
Yes.
The book is in English. There are slokas, everything there. So you can read the book.
Sutras are in Sanskrit.
Sutras are, yeah.
Next.
Okay. I think now we have no questions. We can go for Prarthana. Maybe after the Prarthana, we can take up one or two questions in case there are. So, Venkat Narayan garu, kindly do the Prarthana, please.
Yes, sir. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तः न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्य पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितो ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः अपुत्रा पुत्रिणः सन्तु पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः अधनाः सधनाः सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदां शतं सत्यं वद धर्मं चर स्वाध्यायान्मा प्रमदः सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सर्वे जनाः सुखिनो भवन्तु स्वस्ति
ధన్యవాదాలు వెంకటనారాయణ గారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్. నౌ వి రేస్ ఫర్ ది నేషనల్ యాంథమ్. जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे. जय हिंद. जय हिंद. Okay, now any questions on the topic today? Let me tell you, this book, Vaiseshika Darshana, is a very cheap book. I mean, the price is very low. It's just 100 rupees or 125 rupees. You can easily get it by contacting TTD. If somebody is interested, I can give the detail as to how to get it. So I think it's better to, as people who are interested should purchase this book, which is a very valuable book. It will be used not only by you, by your children also, to understand the ancient physics or ancient science that we had. And then you can read the normal modern science, but then try to understand that all these modern concepts were way back in ancient times available in India. So this is what is the essence. But to know exact detail, you have to go through the book to understand the similarities and understand what is gravity and Gurutvakarshana Shakti and similar words, and feel it, first of all, that yes, we had a lot of knowledge in ancient times compared to what is today, and we should feel proud of our ancient science and technology. That is the essence of the book. So if anybody has any other question, you can ask. No questions? Yeah, please share the process to buy this book. Srinidhi Singh, yeah. I'll give the contact number. You have to just contact him, the person, and he'll tell the process. That is, the process involved is simple, that you have to pay the money with all your details. You have to WhatsApp your address details and the money that you have paid, the screenshot or whatever it is that you have paid the money online, and the book is delivered to you. So once you contact, you will know what is the exact price payment that you have to do. So you get a discount on the book also. If you take more books, maybe it's more, I don't know. There is a price and there's a discount. The cost of the book is 150 rupees, I think. And there's a discount on that. So I'll give the number. It is from the TTD publications. I'll post it in the group so you can have a look. So if there are no more questions, Srinidhi Singh, you are new to this course. I mean, this is the first class of yours?
Yes, sir. This is my first class.
Yeah, fine. Okay. Now you have rightly put your number also, 1769. Right, very nice. And then please go through the video recordings of earlier classes so that you can catch up on what has been told. And yeah, though you have joined late. And then again, I would like to just mention that some of the students are joining late. I don't want to name them. It's not that I don't know. I know who have come late. So this message is for those people who are coming late. This is the first class wherein I can see, or in other classes also, by 6:28 we have 28 people joining. That's very good sign. And they attend the pradhana also. That is the good sign of being a student of Sanatana Dharma. You are following the Dharma. So others, please don't try to be late. And it's in your own interest. It's you have to only tell your mind before you sleep that you should get up at 6:15 or even more, as Babu Garu said. I'm talking about the latest. The maximum is, and then get ready. 6 o'clock you wake up and you can get ready. If you wake up early, then it's all the more better. You can do so many things and be ready. In any case, by 6:25, if you tell your brain that I should get ready by 6:25 to attend the class, then you can do it. It's not a difficult thing. Maybe first 2 days it will be difficult. But otherwise, you can attend this by 6:25. Don't be late. You are unnecessarily missing the valuable information that is being imparted through this course. Okay? So again, I tell you, I know the names. I don't want to tell the names because this is not a normal class of class 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. to remind you. Everyone knows it. Only thing is they don't want to. They are slightly lethargic. So shrug away that lethargy, and then you will see the benefits of this course. One of the person who is attending this class for the second time is that he wants to maintain the discipline in his life. That's the reason he's attending these classes. Of course, knowledge is again coming, but main purpose is to bring in discipline in the day in his life every day, which he was missing once the course is over. So kindly attend the class well in time. Yes, Sharmaji is laughing. Yes, Sharmaji, namaskar. So he is the person who is attending this class to bring back the discipline in life, everyday life. Yeah. And then again, earlier I told you that he comes from a background of well-disciplined work life. He was the Director General of BSF, so you can understand the discipline. And still, he wants to join this force. That gives strength to us also, a moral boost to us that we are trying to impart discipline in the students. Okay. Anyone else? I have talked more. I want to listen in case somebody wants to say anything. If there is no one, so today is Friday and tomorrow is Saturday, Sunday. Please come to the class on Monday, which is a holiday by calendar, but it is a special class to know about how to go about doing prarthana. Okay, now I take leave. Good day for you. Namaskar.